former RAF pilot and now advisor at Universal Defence and Security Solutions Air Vice Marshal Sean Bell joins us here in the studio. Good to see you, Sean. Thank you for coming on. So, Ukrainian troops, we know, have retaken control largely of the Kyiv region. How significant is that, and indeed other areas?
Well, it looks very likely that Kyiv is still a strategic priority for the Russians. But, of course, we've all seen that phase one of this conflict, it hasn't gone well for the Russians. And we've seen over the last couple of days a consolidation of the Russian positions, particularly around the northwest, as they scratch their head and try and work out what next. Literally, in the last 24 hours, we've started to see troop redeployments out of the area, which is a key indicator they now do have a plan B. For me, the withdrawal from Hostomel airport is a key indicator. That would have been hard fought over by the Russians, and therefore they would not give that up, likely, unless there was not going to be any urgency to review its assault on Kyiv in the near future.
Russia, we understand, making key inroads in the south, intense activity there. Perhaps not surprising after what Moscow had said they were going to withdraw from more northerly parts.
Yes, I think we've got to get a little bit beyond the headlines here, because obviously there's the much advertised targeting of Odessa, targeting the fuel depot there. And this sort of targeting would normally be a precursor for ground forces invasion. But I remind viewers that we're looking at Odessa's 1,000 miles away from Russia, and they haven't got any land forces nearby. So it would be very difficult for them to mount any real credible attack against Odessa at the moment. If you imagine, the 40 miles of logistics queue we had for Kyiv, really difficult for Odessa. And also, there's something like 2,500 kilometres of catacombs and caves around Odessa. That would be a major challenge for Russian forces. So I think what's more likely with these attacks is more sending a strategic message to both the international community and to Ukrainians that Odessa is in range.
And we can ask you this every day, can't we? What is the end game for Putin? Are things changing?
Well, if we could get inside Putin's head, we would be illuminated for that. I think it's pretty clear that he originally wanted to take the whole of Ukraine. That hasn't worked well for him, and they've had to come up with a revised strategy. What looks most likely in the near term is he's focusing on the Donbass region. Why is that? Because three main reasons, one of which he's been prosecuting that campaign for about 10 years and will want to bring that to a conclusion. He's redeploying, clearly, forces from Kyiv into the region, but also the logistics supply route for the Donbass is much easier for the Russians because clearly they're right on the Russian border. So bringing troops, bringing fuel, bringing armaments across is a lot more simple for the Russians, and by the same token, a lot more difficult for the Ukrainians. And the third reason is because we haven't really seen much from the Russian Air Force so far supporting its ground forces, probably because Ukrainian resistance has been so good. But, of course, when you're this close to the border, it'll be a lot easier for the Russian Air Force to get involved and potentially have a decisive role. But returning to your question, until everybody understands what Putin's new revised strategic objectives are, and until he's achieved them, we're not going to see any negotiations, meaningful negotiations, anytime soon.
A real waiting game. All right, Sean, thanks a lot.